Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Today I want to talk to you about my new Goblins game and the big white elephant in the room, and that would be Encumbrance. And this also includes armor and penalties. First off, I stole the basic idea from Encumbrance from Lamentations of the Flame Princess because I think James actually came up with one of the best encumbrance systems possible. But I've modified it a little bit, like I do everything. Essentially, what he's done is he's had 6 encumbrance points, and each point has essentially 5 items in it that you can carry before you get bumped up to the next encumbrance point. Now, I've made a little bit of a changes in terms of how that works, but for the first 2 points of encumbrance, your movement is going to be 12 or 120 feet per minute, or 120 feet per combat round when you're running. The third point of encumbrance is going to be 90 feet running or exploring, and it's also going to be 30 feet per combat round, whereas the first slot of encumbrance is going to be 40 feet. So it's going to be kind of like basic, where it's a third of your actual movement rate. The fourth point of encumbrance would give you a move of 60 feet during running and exploring, and 20 feet during a combat round. Fifth point of encumbrance would give you 30 feet. So rather low, 10 feet during a combat round and 30 feet per round running. And the sixth point, you're really kind of screwed. At this point, you're really over encumbered. You can only move 10 feet per exploring or running during a combat round, so you're not running all that fast. And you're only moving 3 feet per combat round. Now, he had 5 items per encumbrance point. Now what I decided to do is go a little first edition with this and modify this by your strength, and modify it by your strength modifier. So should you have an 18 strength, you can actually carry 8 items, 5 plus 3. Should you have a 3 strength, well, now you can only carry 3 items per one of these slots. So you're kind of gimping, and of course the other modifiers, modify that, by, +1, +2, -1, -2, that sort of thing. Insofar as the armor you can carry, that's really not based on a number of items. It's just based on combat. It's just based on encumbrance points. So something like leather is going to add 1 point. So you're relatively unencumbered. You still have a move of 12. If you're wearing really crappy leather armor, like we took some armor off some orcs or goblins or whatever it was, and it was really, you had to kind of makeshift it. And at that point, that leather armor almost only gave us +1 to our armor class instead of +2, which leather normally would. Scale mail, on the other hand, any kind of ring mail, studded leather, all that kind of stuff with leather with junk on it, actually gives you +3 to your armor class, but it gives you 2 encumbrance points. Chain mail, which gives you +4 to your armor class, also gives you 2 points to your encumbrance class. Anything like bandit or splint, which I kind of consider like, sort of like chain with stuff on it, that'll give you 5 points towards your armor class, and it'll give you 3 points of encumbrance. Whereas plate mail also gives you 3 points of encumbrance, but that gives you +6 to your armor class. And it just, I go by the idea this stuff is still just as bulky and heavy, and, the different types of armor are rather expensive, so sometimes you may only be able to afford, to buy bandit mail, so you're just kind of, you don't have as good of an armor class, but you get that. In terms of items that are available to you, let's see, my battery's going dead here. Let me plug this sucker in. Other items available to you, for the most part, will count as one slot of encumbrance, with the exception of a few items, like really small items, quiver of arrows, that sort of thing. That's just going to count as 1 item. Little teeny things like chalk and ink, just almost non-encumbering items. Other items are going to cost you a little bit more. Most weapons cost you 1. Great weapons, which do D10 damage, are going to cost you an entire encumbrance point. So if you're carrying around this big honking halberd, you've now just taken up an entire point of encumbrance because it's this big item. There's other things like heavy crossbows, long bows, which are just these big things that are the size of you. Pole arms, really long spears. If you're carrying like a chest or something like that. If you're carrying a large shield, that's a big item, so that's going to take up an entire encumbrance point. A small shield might take up, like, say, 2 or 3 slots, because it's just not quite as big as, the big, large shield. And the small shields are only going to be able to give you, +1 to your armor class versus one person. On that note, shields will give you +1 to your armor class versus melee, but it's going to give you +2 to your armor class versus missile weapons, because you have more time to kind of like get that shield in front of the arrow or whatever, because it's not quite as close to you. So that's something straight out of Lamentations as well. I really like that whole idea in terms of using that. Now, there's also going to be some chances of failure in terms of your skills and in terms of magic spell failure. If you're a normal human, if you're anything besides an elf or a gnome or a half-elf, having an encumbrance of 1 or 2 is not going to give you any chance of spell failure. If you have an encumbrance level of 3, it's going to give you a 3% chance of spell failure. It's not so bad. 4 is going to give you a 30% chance of arcane spell failure, not so much clerical spell failure. 5 is going to give you a 60% chance, and 6 is going to give you 90. So you really don't want to be carrying a lot of stuff as a wizard. Should you be an elf, those change. So 3 becomes a 1% chance of failure. 4 becomes 15% chance of failure. An encumbrance of 5 would give you a 30% chance of failure, and then 6 would give you 45. So it's still bad, but not quite as bad, because you're an elf, so you're a little bit better at these things. Should you be a gnome or a half-elf, then it's at an encumbrance level of 3, it's going to give you 2% chance of failure. 4 is going to give you a 23% chance of failure. 5 is going to give you 45% chance of failure. And 6, when you're just barely moving, is going to give you a 68% chance of failure. In terms of some of the skills you think of as thief skills, well, 1 is going to give you a +2 to your climbing penalty, a +2 to your sleight of hand penalty, +2 to stealth, +1 to tinker, and it's also going to be a +1 to your initiative modifier when you roll initiative. 2, on the other hand, you're just slightly encumbered at that point. Your move remains the same, but everything is going to give you a 0% chance of increased chance of being able to do stuff. But it's going to still give you a +1 to your initiative. Once you start to become encumbered, then you're going to get -2 to climbing, -1 to sleight of hand, -1 to stealth, -1 to tinker, and your initiative modifier is going to remain the same. So if you have a move of 9, your initiative modifier remains the same as it normally would be. Now, once you're at 4, when you have a move of 60, things get a little worse. Your climbing penalty is now -10. Sleight of hand is -3. Stealth is -4. Tinkering is -2, and your initiative is now -1. If you have a move of 30, so you got 5 encumbrance points, then your climbing penalty is -15. Your sleight of hand is -5. Stealth is -6, because you're kind of noisy at this point. Tinker is -3, and your initiative modifier is now -2. And finally, if you're stupid encumbered, your climbing penalty is now -20. Sleight of hand is -7. Stealth is -8. Tinker is -4. And your initiative modifier is now -3. So that's what happens, in my game in terms of stuff I've stolen from James, to be sure, and then stuff I decided to do in terms of what you might think of as either Pathfinder or First Edition, like what's the penalties going to be. There's no real penalties for different types of armor. It's more like how much you're carrying and how much it all weighs. So that's what I'm doing with encumbrance and initiative and armor.